when they have happenings in the Bible, they'll say the story of they'll call it a story. Well, it's not a story, it's an event. It's not a story. A story is something you write like for Rumpelstiltskin and stuff like that. This is an event. This is things that actually happened. And they were written down for us and for a reason, for a very good reason. Okay, on page 49, it said, and this asks the first question, what change or innovation in your lifetime have you gladly embraced? Well, I know when I started on the railroad in 1970, we did things a lot different. It was all manual labor, and when the machinery and the mechanized equipment came in, that was an innovation that was really, it was welcomed. It did cut some men off, but it made it a lot better, and the railroad couldn't function without it, with the way it was growing. So I don't know what your response would that to be, but that's in the cultural world, you know. But on the right-hand page, the last paragraph says, how do we respond to change? Well, we embraced that change because it was good for us. Not all changes are good. What happens when our cultural changes occur that are odds with our beliefs, and what is non-negotiable, and how do we decide? Well, we're going to find out today in today's lesson. It comes from Daniel chapter 6, and our lesson starts off with verse Daniel 6 through 10, but I'd like to read 1 through 5. It gets us where we're at there, because I think it's feasible to do this. So Daniel chapter 6, verse 1 through 5, and it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which shall be over the whole kingdom. And over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto him, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, because of an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. So this brought on the jealousy between and you see it today in the world too. Somebody gets a promotion over somebody else, and they're always, it's always kickback on that. So nothing's changed there. But this excellent spirit that was in Daniel, that was God. That was his relationship with God, because 3 times I've said this before, Daniel referred to whom is well beloved. When we'll see now, he was given the revelation of the end times by the angel Gabriel, and we'll see why he was thought of so highly. This lesson will explain it. All right, verse 4. Then the presidents and the princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but could not find none occasion nor fault, forasmuch as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. And that was a capital G. All the other times in the Bible, when you find it, it will be a small g, lowercase g. So then we'll get into our lesson today. But I first of all, we've got 2 kind of people in this world, and you can't deny it, and there's no way you can say it's not true. We have good people, and you have evil people. There's no other way about it. And what we're going to be dealing with, it was a lesson here, but God punishes, he hates sin, and he punishes evil people. And so we will at the end of this lesson, we'll find out exactly what happened to these evil people that are accusing. All right, then 6 through 10. Then these presidents and princes assembled themselves together to the king and said, thus saith unto King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors and the princes and the counselors and the captains, have consulted together to establish a royal statute, to make a firm decree, that whosoever shall ask the petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it be not changed, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which altereth not. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber towards Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed, and gave thanks before God, as he did aforetime. So now the jealousy has splendid on, has I guess, turned into, we're going to plot and scheme, and we're going to get rid of Daniel. We're going to do it at all costs. We're going to do this. And they had a pretty good deal there, because when they laid it out before the king, they thought, they flattered him. They flattered him, and they actually tricked him. They had really tricked him, because they had no intent to raise him up. It was to get at Daniel's what they wanted. But now, dealing with these evil men, in the book of Proverbs 26, verses 27 and 28, said, if you dig a pit, you'll fall in itself, and if you roll a rock, it'll roll back on you. So regardless of what anybody that's just verse 27. I'll stop at that. Whatever you try to do, think about what you're going to do, because I'm telling you, whatever it says, they call it karma in this world today, but it's judgment. I mean, you cannot go about doing people the wrong way, treating them away. It won't happen. It's going to come back on you every time, and a lot of times it's going to be worse. All right, I've already given up on his faith, that he was going to serve his God, and that's just all there was to it. So they laid the plan to get him, and how that blowed up on them is under top of the 50 said, Daniel was a man of deep and sincere faith, that he would choose to show loyalty to God rather than the loyalty of a king. Regardless of how many had agreed to the idea, the statement is a reminder that proper action is not determined by popular vote. Just because something is legal doesn't mean it's right. Y'all agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah. I hate this when they call it the law of the land. It should be the law of the heathen. It shouldn't be law of the land, but they seek to change the law. The conspirators claim that also highlights that the wrongdoing is always based on a lie. Whether it's, I won't get caught, nobody thinks it's wrong, or nobody will be hurt, we know the conspirator's statement was a lie. Running all the prayers and official requests through King Darius set him up as a various God's lone, little g, lone representative on earth, and the final voice of all political authority. So this is what appealed to his ego and his pride. He loved power, and which all of them do. It doesn't seem like when people get in office or people acquire a lot of money, there's never enough money. It doesn't seem like there's enough money. I asked my uncle one time, how much money was enough money? And at that time, he had a bear claw table, a round bear claw table, and we would go out there to that when I stayed with him at Graysville while I was working on the railroad, and we would he had a coin laundry. And I mean, he robbed them twice a week. We would get the quarters in a 5-gallon bucket. And it'd be about half full, and we would get the dimes out of the dryer in a gallon bucket, and it would be half full. So, and he would go through all of this. Now, That's the reason I want to explain. This happened. We'd pile it all on the table, and he would go through and get the silver dime, mercury dime, the silver quarters. Now my job was to stack them in, $10. I couldn't touch him until he went through and made sure he got them, and I just got to look at him as he was doing that, and I just said, he said, "Uncle, I want to ask you something." He said, "What is it, son? What is it?" And he just steady like that. I said, "How much money is enough money?" And I've never heard anybody else say it, and you probably never will. He said, "Son," he never looked at me, he never changed his face. He said, "Son, I don't know. You'd have to ask somebody else. I couldn't buy a chigger a wrestling jacket." Can you imagine now? A chigger a wrestling jacket. And I always felt sorry for him because his money consumed him. And that's what happens with people when they have a lust for money and a love of God and is in them, not in them. That's all they study is more money, and it never went. His money never did him or his family, either one, any good because of the way it. But anyway, I hate to get off on that, but I thought that was appropriate. All right, the next segment is a set of praying prophets. The new law did not change Daniel's behavior. He continued praying as he did aforetime. The Bible does not require a person to kneel and pray 3 times a day. Daniel's visible practice and posture reflected what could not be seen, the commitment of his heart and his love for the Father. Daniel knew prayer is essential for a personal faith, and it changes things. Prayer was a priority for Daniel. If you ever go to YouTube and Ricky Skaggs, and I can't think of the girl's name, if you will, just go in there and, "Oh Daniel prayed," and your heart will be enlightened. Just listen to the song. You will be supercharged. And it talks about on 51 where at the temple Solomon introduced the practice of facing Jerusalem when he did, but we know that the Babylonians, when they erupted, that they destroyed Jerusalem and its temple. So now it's to face Jerusalem. Now is what they were doing because they're the ones in exile. Daniel was not trying to flaunt, this is the bottom of the page on the right side, Daniel was not trying to flaunt his disobedience or draw attention to himself. He was doing what he had likely been doing 3 times a day. For his 60 plus years in Babylon, he knelt and faced Jerusalem and offered his prayers and thanksgiving to God. Prayers this day, though, took a new status. They were illegal. So you see that. If you think, I want to ask you a question. Do you think if the government had the power, do you think they'd stop all worship? They most assuredly would, folks. They most assuredly would. That's not all the people, but we've got a certain group. They're evil. And remember what happens to evil people. Everything runs its course. You can't avoid it. If you stay on that path, it will lead to bad. All right, said question 2, how have you been impacted by shifts in our culture? I don't know where I've been, but I have been disgusted by some of the things. When people don't even know what gender they are. They dye their hair purple, green, all kind of crazy colors. God, what's they not satisfied with the color God gave them? Is that what the problem is? They want to seek to change, alter to what God had said? You know, my hair used to be brown. It's gray now, but thank goodness I'm still here. But I mean, there's brown, there's blonde, there's red, there's black, brown. You know, it's real depressing to see Young people act this way. What are they going to act like when they get 40? What is going to go on then? All right, Daniel 6:11 through 13. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Hast thou not signed the decree? See, they're asking him. They're throwing it in his lap now. They're blaming him. Hast thou not signed the decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save of thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? Then the king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Then answered they that and said before the king, that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. So it looks like they're going to win, right? They've caught him in the act of praying, so now they've brought it before the King Darius. And the law of the Medes and Persians could not be changed. You can find that in the book of Esther, in chapter 1. When Vashti refused to come when Xerxes called her to show her off in front of the nobles and all that, she wouldn't go. And so the men of the high-ranking officers went to him and told him, to write a decree to banish her away because it'll cause so much problems in the kingdom with the other women seeing what she did. You can go to chapter 1 and find it. It's there. Okay, how long did Daniel's accusers stare at his window, waiting on him to have the nerve to pray? The Hebrew word translated assemble in verse 11 carries the idea that they worked together in a malicious intent. In other words, they probably for 24 hours a day, they had somebody posted there to watch him, or had probably had to watch Daniel, to catch him in the act of praying. In English, it's the difference between planning and plotting. The conspirators is next topic. Those who had convinced King Darius to enable the decree now rushed to him to get to enforce it against Daniel. This had been their evil intent all along. They reminded Darius of his decree, the offense and the punishment, and have him verbally agree to enforce it. Only then did the group identify the offender. They wanted the king to paint himself into a corner, and it worked. But and a little bit later, you're going to find out who got painted in a corner. And this is I really love this. I love this account in the Bible of Daniel. The New Testament on page 53 in the New Testament teaches that Satan is a liar and the father of all lies. That's what his intent is to steal, kill, and destroy. Easily we see the conspirators of Daniel doing the same works, lying, intending to kill, deceiving, and accusing before the throne. The battle was not physical or political, it's spiritual. And if you don't think we have a spiritual war going on today, yes, very much so, very much so. The conundrum, I believe I'm pronouncing it. The scene compels us to ask ourselves what we should do when faced with obeying what God says or what the law says, when the two conflict with each other. The Bible teaches us that we are to obey the law, Romans 13. This is Paul speaking, 1 through 2, and it also shows, though, that God's law takes priority over man's laws, Acts 5:29. This is important to remember. We're not called on now to take a stand, but I would warn you, you better get ready. You better prepare yourself for what's coming. You better prepare your grandchildren and your children for what's coming. Because the Bible doesn't mock itself. It said in the last days, men's souls will wax worse and worse. It doesn't mean we're just going to get bad and then we're going to turn back. It's going to get worse and worse, and things are going to happen that you ain't going to believe. It's like God told the prophets, I'll do something in Israel to cause everybody's ear to tingle. And so this is what's going to happen in the world. We're seeing it now. So if we don't get ourselves ready to take a stand, when somebody comes up to you and says, well, are you going to do this or are you going to go home? And it's strictly against God's laws. Make sure you're ready. Make sure you're ready, because it's going to happen. Maybe.
That last paragraph there.
Ma'am?
In that last paragraph there, it's already happened to people. You know, their businesses on the right side.
Yeah.
It's already happened to people.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
And what the writer says, and it's easy. It's easy to come up just like, and when Joshua asked the people, said, choose this day whom you shall choose. For as for me and my house, we serve the Lord. That was during a time of a lot of upendings and stuff. So it's easy to say something. It's easy to agree to something before you even think about what all's going to happen. But when it comes down to it, that's why I wanted to get into that. We need to prepare ourselves, and said the time to make the decision is beforehand, not in the heat of the moment. So we should be ready now. We should have a plan, and that plan, you get that plan nowhere else but the words of God. That's where you get it. That's where you get His promise, and that's what answers a lot of questions. God will take care of us. We have a Bible song. We have a song and that says God will take care of us, and He will, and He will. He is faithful. Now, I want to just go through this. Darius did everything in his power to get Daniel off the hook. I'm using modern language. He tried every way, even he exhausted all ways, and he saw that he could not do it. Because Darius was like Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel was held at a high esteem because of his character and integrity and his love for God, and they saw that. And there was just something different about him. But he couldn't do it. And so they called his hand, and then the king commanded that they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said to Daniel, Thy God, whom thou servest continually, He will deliver thee. Now, what do you think about that verse? Do you think when he said He will deliver you, the God whom thou servest, He will deliver, do you think that Darius had faith, or was he hoping? What do you think? He knew that Daniel prayed to God every day 3 times. He knew that he had a rich prayer life. I think it was he was hoping. I think it was really hope. Because, hey, he was a pagan, and they worshiped Marduk, you know. God was not in the picture with them. And the stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet, and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. And let's see, I have 18 to 20. All right, now I want to read another part that wasn't brought out in the lesson, but I think it's very important. It's Daniel 6, 18 through 20, if you'd like to read with me. Then the king went into his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And Daniel spake and said to Daniel, and the king spake to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God whom thou servest continually able to deliver thee from the lion. That's how much it troubled Darius. That's how much concern he had for him. You remember in Esther, the book of Esther, Xerxes could not sleep. And sleep went away from him. And what did he do? He called for the records to be read. And that's when he found out about Mordecai and what he had done with the chief guards was about to assassinate him. And so that's good. And that was when the Medes and Persians wrote anything down, it could not be changed. And they always kept records. Best record keeping. And then he called out to him, and in verse 21, then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. My God hath sent his angel and hath shut the lion's mouth, that they have not hurt me. Forasmuch as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, I have done no hurt. In other words, he's blameless. Then the king, exceedingly glad for him, commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. But I think I'm going to go ahead and do this, the last part right now. I want to read this because it's good. It's one verse. It's one verse, chapter 6, verse 24. At this, what I was telling you about evil and good and how God takes care of everything. Okay. And the king commanded that they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them with their children and their wives, and the lions had the mastery over them, and break all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the pit of the den. They sought for Daniel's demise. What happened to them? What it said? If you roll a rock, what will happen to you? You dig a pit, you'll fall in it. The death sentence, Daniel's the only known example from ancient Near East of somebody being dropped into a lion's pit as punishment. And you know where he's got that dropped in, it said they rolled a rock through the door. I don't know. I proclaim it was a den. Anyway, but here's something else that the writer wrote, and I just... it has nothing to do with the lesson except, it was talking about Babylon. And I'll read what this guy wrote. Talking about King Nebuchadnezzar, who ruled 562 BC, led construction. The massive walls were each 10 miles long and 25 feet thick. Do you think that's right? King Nebuchadnezzar increased the walls to 6 miles. Babylon had the Euphrates River running through the center of it. It was 6 miles, 6 miles, 6 miles square. And those 11 gates that are talked about in Isaiah about Cyrus 200 years before he was even born, and that was the handwriting on the wall when Daniel did that. They came and killed Belshazzar. So I didn't mean to get on that, but fact checking, think about the reason I said that. People are watching you and they're questioning you, and if we say anything that's Bible related, please try to get all your ducks in a row, because one mistake can lead to something else. See right there, he wrote 10 miles. It wasn't 10, there's 6. There's 6. 4 square, 36 square miles inside it. So I just thought that would to drop that in there, because sometimes we're the only Bible that some people see. They don't. they don't attend church. There was just one this morning on this YouTube deal. You know, they have the Bible quizzes, you know, and like the books, you know, they have different questions on. But there's one that came up and said, do you attend church? And it had weekly, bi-weekly, every once in a while, and it had never. Guess how many was in the never, folks? Guess how many? There was 30 of us in the weekly. 52 said they never. 52. That's the ones that voted, so. Daniel's faith. Daniel was now probably over 80 years old. His unfailing love and devotion for Yahweh had always been evident. Daniel had not hidden his faith, but had lived boldly for God. Even King Darius knew that Daniel's unshakable faith, and the contrast between what he saw in Daniel and the prophet's accusers was remarkable. Daniel displayed integrity. They were deceitful. Daniel was true to God. They lied to the king. Darius realized the intent of the accuser was to destroy Daniel, not to honor the king. Daniel's intent was to honor his God, whom he had served continually. And talking about when they threw them in there, I read one commentary that said they come before Darius and said, well, the lions probably weren't hungry. That's the reason that they didn't do it. They had just been fed, and they said, well, we'll just find out. We'll chunk y'all in there. And you see what happened. All right, question 4, what are some spiritual practices or habits that demonstrate our trust in God?
Prayer.
Yeah, number 1. Serving others and how you live your life out in the world. That ought to identify you as a Christian. People where you work, that you work with, they ought to know who you are. They ought to know who you are. All right, last paragraph down there at the bottom of the page on 55 said Darius' actions that morning serve as a reminder that people are watching us, especially in times of difficulty. Amen. Our faithfulness can affect what an unbelieving world thinks about God. We'll see, of course, I won't do that. When they diagnosed me with cancer, and the guys that I drank coffee to at the Hill of Knowledge over there in Winfield, they would look at me, are you not worried? I said, no. And I wasn't doing this, don't get me wrong, I was doing this because it led up to me telling them about the Lord. I said, no, I'm not afraid, because I trust in the living God. And I said, fear not. 365 times in the Bible, what does it say? Fear not. Fear not. And it talks about Paul and Silas when they were thrown into jail, and at midnight, said at midnight Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. Their story is a reminder that people are listening and watching. Our light can shine through the darkness and allow people to see the Father. Just the fact that Darius went to check on Daniel that morning is proof the king at least thought Daniel could be right. Or that's what I said he was hoping for. But hearing his voice, hearing Darius' voice, Daniel, always faithful, immediately gave glory to God. Daniel's world had changed its standard for acceptable behavior. Daniel, however, had not. He remained faithful to God. Regardless, he was willing to pay the ultimate price for his faith. Increasingly, our changing world wants us to embrace standards that are contrary to God's Word. Our challenge to remain faithful to Him regardless of the cost. How can spiritual practices or habits prepare us to stand in the face of our opposition. Well, you have to have a prayer life, and then you have to you have to have a life structured in reading the Bible, and you get your reassurance in that. There's so many things that's happening now; it's overwhelming. I can imagine at businesses and stuff how their things seem to change from day to day. I noticed, Jamie, you're with. I know that the hospital has changes and stuff all the time, don't they? And some of it makes sense, and some of it don't, doesn't it? I mean, you wonder, what is this for? I mean, just change to be changed. Well, I'm a conservative and I don't like change. See, I don't like. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But in this world that we live in today, it's different. But there are going to be times when we will be challenged, and the book of Daniel this tells us to be ready for it. Man, what else does it tell us? What else does the book of Daniel tell us? That God is always with us. He was with them when He threw them in the lion's den, wasn't He? He will be with us also. Just trust in the Lord. All right, is there any questions or comments?
James,
Sir?
this lesson reminds me of something that's occurred in our society in the last week or so.
Okay.
This large number of students at Auburn were baptized.
Yeah.
And now Auburn, and as well as the professors and the coaches that were involved with this, are all being criticized nationally for their participation in this process.
You know what I got to say about that? Hoorah, Auburn! Hoorah!
Well, our governor, and I'll have to admit, she has stood up and saying basically, y'all not going to tell us what we're going to do.
Exactly. There you go. Take a stand. Take a stand. Take a stand. And I'm proud of our governor. She's done well. She's been a very good governor. And I'm proud of Auburn. It needs to happen. Yeah. They got so many communist teachers down there, down the road down here that, I don't know. I don't know. But they're leading people to destruction. They're leading people to destruction. All right, for no other word, we'll have a prayer which be dismissed. Father, I just thank you for allowing me to stand here before this class, Lord, and do my feeble attempt to teach a lesson. Lord, I pray that you will anoint the words I've said, and that people will get the true meaning, the meaning that I left out. Lord, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I ask you to bless in the services follow. Brother Allen, give him the words you'd have us to hear. Brother David and the family, I pray that they'll have a safe trip back, Lord, and watch over them. For the ones on the prayer list, Lord, the ones who have cancer and all the various other things that needs, Lord, I just pray that you would attend to them if it be thy will, Lord. Forgive us, Lord, where we failed in Christ's name. Amen. I never turned that crazy thing on. I bet they couldn't hear a word.